All right, we've made it to Module 8 of SAAS Mastery, where we are going to talk about deployment. We have 4 lessons here. First one, we'll talk about knowledge transfer and transitioning. Secondly, we'll talk about deploying the solution. Thirdly, we'll talk about managing and maintaining the solution. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about preventing intellectual property theft. So if we jump into Lesson 1, knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer is one of the most overlooked parts of the project. Typically when projects run over time, over budget, one of the first things that gets cut from scope is the documentation for the project. Everyone's just like, oh, it works, so we won't bother with documentation, or as long as somebody knows what's going on, that's fine. And people leave positions all the time. Things happen where you need somebody else to understand what's going on. So always make sure that as part of your project there is time for documentation that's baked in. And by that I don't just mean like a developer gives you code and it has some comments in it that tells you what's going on. You really want to make sure that your documentation goes down to the level of detail necessary. And for that, there are multiple things that you want to make sure that are captured. It's not just the code, it's the rationale behind why we made certain design decisions that we made. That way, if you ever need to hire somebody else or another company to go and enhance or maintain or fix anything in the application, they have some sort of documentation of, oh, we tried this, but it wasn't going to work because the last thing you want is another company coming in saying, oh, you should have done it this way. And then you say, all right, let's do it right. You do it that way. And it turns out it doesn't work. And that was, a bridge you already crossed earlier. So you want to make sure that you have that documentation in place, that there's knowledge transfer and transition that's happening to a member of your team. And, again, it's not just about understanding the code. You also need to understand the environment. And by environment, I mean things like the infrastructure. What databases do we have set up? How many of them? Is there clustering? Is there failover? Is there, high availability on there? Do we have, is the scale automatic, where once the load hits a certain point, a new server, database gets stood up and added in there? Is there something that, I need to monitor and add over time? Where is the code being housed? Is it on a Linux server? Is it on a Windows server? Is it a serverless environment? All those kinds of things are, concepts that you need to make sure you have an understanding for. What's the code deployment? So, say my servers go down and I need to restart everything. How would I do that? How would I push the updated code? What if I need to make a change myself? How would I get that, to the target environment? So just make sure all of that is documented. If you come across any common types of issues as you're going through development, make sure that is also documented so that hey, look, we got this issue 10 times over the course of the project. Here's what we did each time to fix it. That way, chances are if it came up 10 times, it's going to come up an 11th time, and now you'll know how to address that issue. Maintenance. What maintenance activities am I going to be responsible for, after we, start getting users into the system? And we'll have a lesson on this where we'll go a little bit more in depth about what we mean by maintenance and some of the ideas around there, but just wanted to give you a general idea right now. Also make sure that any sessions that you're having where you're getting on a call with the team to go through any of these, they should never just hand you a document and then say, okay, here's our documentation, goodbye. There should be some sort of meeting or a series of meetings that occur afterwards where they walk you through the documentation that they gave you and are available to answer any questions that you have or any concerns that you have going forward. All of those sessions, make sure you record them If you're doing it over like Zoom or Teams, make sure you're downloading the recording and storing it, on some shared drive, whether it's Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, because you don't want those recordings to automatically be deleted. And you want to make sure that if you need to bring another team member on, or say you implement this MVP and you need to wait a while before you can do your enhancement phase. You got to wait till you get a little bit of revenue coming in before you can finance building out the next phase. Well, the more time that goes by, if you can't get the same developers or team to go and do phase one or phase two, etc., you may have to hire somebody else. And if you have to hire somebody else, they may have questions about what was built. And being able to point them to any kind of documentation will just help them understand that much quicker, and it'll reduce the chances that there are errors, in the subsequent phases. And just, keep one thing in mind, that there should never be just one person that knows how everything operates. You absolutely want to ensure that the people that know what your environment is aren't outside people, that it's that you have members of your own staff that or you that know everything that's going on, because an outside staff can leave at any point, and then all of that knowledge is lost once they leave. And even internally in your company, maybe you're doing this by yourself, and then it's okay if it's just you that knows what's going on. But if you have multiple people on your team, you want to make sure that there's never just one person, because things happen all the time. I was involved in a project where they pulled us in because there was only one person who understood a key process that the company was doing, and that person got hit by a bus one day and died. So, we had to go and rebuild the process based on what other people told us were their understanding of the process, just because the one person who knew exactly how the process worked couldn't answer questions for us anymore. So just keep that in mind.